Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that it helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm. And before I forget, drop a 1 in the live chat as well if you can hear and see me clearly. But getting back to the introduction, also, if you've been ghost watching me for quite some time now, or maybe you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms to get this information out to your family and friends. And it also does help give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. And with the introduction out of the way, now we can get into today's stream. And today's show is titled, what is it titled? Today's show is titled Migrant Squatters Busted with Illegal Guns Near Elementary School in New York City. A lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of news have been breaking over the last week or two concerning squatters all across the nation. You know, story here, a story there. And this by far, I'm not going to say is the worst story because there have been worse than this. But the fact that these guys got caught squatting, selling drugs with guns near an elementary school, and they've been doing this for quite some time now, that's what kind of makes this for me a little bit worse than most stories that I've heard so far, right? Just because it was so close near to a school. But let's get into it. What I want to do right now is I want to play a quick News Nation clip so that we can find out what's happening in New York City concerning these illegal immigrant squatters who were busted recently with all type of guns, all type of drugs, and even with a child, a 7-year-old child in their possession. Let's get into this information. Let's get into it.
Are in ICE custody this morning.
Let me rewind that back.
8 migrants are in ICE custody this morning after a raid where police discovered illegal guns and drugs in the house where they were squatting. All of this happening just steps away from an elementary school in the Bronx.
And all of this happening, and it's not even the summer yet. It's not even the summer yet. I'm just going to put that out there. I can't even imagine how things are going to get in New York City when it actually gets hot outside. Now, because I interrupted it, let's take it from the top one more time.
8 migrants are in ICE custody this morning after a raid where police discovered illegal guns and drugs in the house where they were squatting. All of this happening just steps away from an elementary school in the Bronx. And by the way, this is not the first time some of these suspects have been in police custody. Hannah Dova is live for us in New York this morning. Hannah, even more arrests were made in this case just recently.
Yeah, good morning, Marquis. We know 7 of the 8 people arrested during last week's raid are now in Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody. 2 of those suspects also faced murder and assault charges in the last year, but they were released.
Only in Biden's America. 2 of the 7 had previous attempted murder. And what did they say? Aggravated assault charges. They were released. They were released. Go figure. I can't say that I'm surprised at this point in time, though. Can any of us say that we're surprised by this now? We've seen and heard this story over and over and over again. This is insane.
Charges in the last year, but they were released. 3 more people were arrested yesterday. We're going to show you some new video. It shows federal agents at this home in the Bronx Wednesday afternoon. There you see it on the security footage. Authorities walking several people out of the home in handcuffs. This all started last Wednesday when police responded to a call about a man with a gun near the school you mentioned. Police chased 2 Venezuelan migrants with illegal guns into their home, where they discovered they had been squatting in the basement. Here's a look at that basement. Inside, police say they found several more guns, cocaine, and ketamine, all in the presence of a 7-year-old child.
So they had a 7-year-old child down there doing this near an elementary school. So just complete disregard for the children. And what I can't wait to do after this news clip is over is get into the New York Post article, because it gives us a little bit more detailed information on this entire situation that's going on. And they've been wreaking havoc in this Bronx neighborhood for some time now. And they really only just now got busted because of the fact that they keep getting busted, but then keep getting released. And it gained so much attention locally that eventually the feds got involved. But I don't want to jump the gun. Let's carry on with this News Nation clip.
5 more men and 1 woman were arrested. Guns, cocaine, and ketamine, all in the presence of a 7-year-old child. 5 more men and 1 woman were arrested. Now, the suspect who prompted that 911 call that set all of this off, it's this guy on your screen, Hector De Sousa Villalta. He was accused of shooting a man last year. He was charged with attempted murder, but was later released.
Let's look at the charges that this guy has on him. Let's look at his rap sheet throughout the time that he's been here. This illegal immigrant. Let's look at his rap sheet. I'm gonna blow it up for you guys, right? I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not gonna try. But his first name is Hector. Migrant gun arrest, criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of controlled substance, acting in a manner injurious to a child, previously charged with attempted murder, and released. And released. I just don't understand what's going on here. And it seems so overly simplistic to say, in cities like New York, right? These Democratic ran cities, they just want havoc. It's so like overly simplistic to just say that they just want havoc. But I do understand that to the degree where havoc and fear mongering is what they run on. So essentially you create the problem to solve the problem. But the thing is that the problems never actually get solved. And you just keep going through this cycle of madness, in cities like New York and Chicago, where the issues never get resolved. And only the citizens of said cities wind up getting hurt, right? The innocent people that have nothing to do with nothing. It's really unfortunate and rather upsetting, honestly. But yeah, look, I just one more time. Criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of controlled substance, acting in a manner injurious to a child, previously charged with attempted murder, and released. I told you, in Biden's America, illegal immigrants, even when they commit violent crimes, do not get deported, let alone go to jail. But I digress. Let's carry on.
Why are our cops there a second time arresting people that, one, had an open gun indictment walking the streets, one had an open attempted murder shooting in Yonkers?
And that's the question so many are asking. Now, when it comes to De Sousa Villalta's latest appearance in court, a judge let him go again on supervised release, despite the DA's request to set bail. The same judge released 2 other squatters, and another judge let 3 more go on supervised release. Now, the Police Benevolent Association of New York say officers are doing their jobs, but they can't keep arresting repeat offenders. And judges need to hold them accountable. Mark, I know this is happening in New York, but we've been seeing these cases nationwide.
Yeah, across the country. It's hard to wrap your mind around why it keeps happening.
Really?
Henna Doba, thanks so much.
And the thing is, you can't even get mad at NYPD about it. Because like she said, they're doing their job. They're clearly arresting these guys. They're clearly busting these guys, right? They're clearly putting charges on them. But none of that seems to matter in Biden's America. It doesn't matter. You can do pretty much anything you want as long as you're not a citizen, and you'll be released. You'll be released. And then we wonder why and scratch our heads pretending to be confused as to why, when you go to the El Paso border, the illegal immigrants attempting to cross down there were as aggressive as they were. And now it's gotten to the point to where memos are going out down at the Texas border to expect and anticipate more violent aggression coming from these so-called migrants attempting to cross the border while Biden is still in office. Now, what I want to do to complement this news clip from News Nation is that I want to get into a New York Post article, because like I said, this article does give a little bit more detail into what's actually going on with this case, with the situation, who they were, what they were actually doing. It gives a lot more details. Like I said, I want to complement this video by going through this New York Post article next. But before I do that, there are 245 of you in the stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. And I do want to give my thank yous out to those who are supporting the channel, because without you guys, I don't exist. So I truly thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, DSB, for coming through and showing love. He said, Shalom, TD, my warrior brother. Thank you, DSB, for always coming through. Thank you, DSB, again, who said he came to America straight from prison. I believe that 100%. I believe that 100%. I 100% believe that this man came here. Well, not me, but this man came here straight from a Venezuelan prison to America. In my opinion, I believe, I assume. That's just my assumption. I'm right there with you, DSB. This man came here to commit crime. That's what he came here for. Thank you, brother. Shout out to V Hannah for the thank you support. I appreciate you. Shout out to DSB again, gifting a channel membership. I appreciate you, DSB. And shout out to DSB once again, 4 times. Shout out to DSB for gifting another channel membership. I appreciate you for all the support that you're showing me. DSB is the executive producer of today's stream. Just so you all know, he is the executive producer of today's show. Now, let's get into that New York Post article next. Let's get into it next, because like I said, it gives us a lot more detail and information concerning what's going on with these individuals, why and how they actually got caught, and what it is that they were actually doing precisely, and how they were terrorizing the Bronx neighborhood, and how even till this day, even though despite, these guys, getting caught to some degree, the landlord of the building that they were squatting in, he's scared for his life. He is scared for his life that these guys are going to come back, or they're going to send somebody to come get him for calling the police. Terrified. It's very unfortunate what's happening in Gotham City right now, also known as New York City, or I should say formerly known as New York City. But let's jump into this. This article here is titled Gun-toting Bronx Migrant Squatters Were in Custody but Set Free Because Processing Centers Were Crowded. They were crowded, what do you want us to do? Processing centers are crowded, they got guns, they got drugs, attempted murders on them, but the processing centers were overcrowded, so we just had to let them go. Let's find out what's going on. Let's dive into this article right now. Also, the link to this article is in the description box below if you want to read it for yourself. A migrant squatter crew that terrorized a Bronx neighborhood were in federal custody but cut loose because of overcrowded processing centers, allowing them to run amok in the Big Apple. The Venezuelan migrants evaded justice over and over, even after one was set for deportation. Another was charged with attempted murder, and 8 suspects were nabbed in the Bronx with drugs and guns in their possession, leaving neighborhoods shaken and the landlord fearing for his life. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this better, and so I can see it better myself, right? The article continues to read, one of the 8 Venezuelan citizens remain at large, ICE spokesperson Marie Ferguson said Wednesday night, although she did not name the suspect. Ferguson said the U.S. Border Patrol in Texas detained 4 of the group back in September of 2022 and May of 2023. But of course, they let them go because they had to, right? And it states here the reason they had to was because of overcrowding. But they were released because of overcrowding. Had to let them go. When you have as many illegal immigrants crossing the border as you do, and you're doing your best to detain them, I mean, I guess at a certain point, it just gets overcrowded when you get run amok the way that you do, and you're not allowed to deport anybody. So something's got to give, right? And when Biden's not allowing you to deport anyone, the only other option is to release them amongst the citizen population. And here you have it in Gotham City, formerly known as New York City. Havoc has become the city. Let's carry on. Meanwhile, John Cardenas Silver was ordered to be deported, but was released 7 months later from the Stewart County Detention Center on an order of supervision and told to report to New York. This man was set for deportation. They held him for 7 months and said, wait a minute, why are we going to deport him? Biden's in office. And that would upset him because we don't deport under Biden. So they let him go. They released him. I mean, that's the logical thing to do, right? Cross the border illegally. You don't have your information in order. Fraudulent asylum seeker, set for deportation. But then you remember, that's not what we do in the US anymore. At least not right now. So let him go and send him to New York City so that he can commit crime. And that's exactly what he did. Let's carry on. The article continues to read, all 5 ditched their processing appointments. I'm assuming that's in reference to catch and release, right? Catch and release probation program. All 5 ditched their processing appointments and elected instead to gather in a house on Hall Avenue in the Bronx, where neighbors claim they ran a drug dealing operation. While they were free on the streets, several of the migrants racked up a laundry list of crimes ranging from criminal possession of loaded firearms to burglary, and even assault and an attempted murder charge. Hector, our good friend right here, Hector, who illegally entered the country through Texas on May 3rd of last year and was arrested August 28th of last year for first-degree assault with a weapon and attempted murder, but the charges were dropped after his accuser refused to cooperate, according to NYPD Chief of Patrol, John Shell. So, I mean, I guess the no snitching rule was in full effect. Whoever he, beat up on with the gun, I'm assuming, he was, pistol whipping him and at some point fired the weapon, probably in a drug deal gone bad. The individual that he beat up on and shot at, allegedly that is, didn't want to go forward and press charges against him. He wouldn't cooperate because that's how in fear of his life he was. I assume, in my opinion, that is. Despite those charges, Hector was cut loose in Bronx criminal court, despite the district attorney's request that he be held on nearly $500,000. The reason that I have that highlighted and that's so relevant is for the district attorney to put a bond that high on your head, he's assuming that our good friend Hector here doesn't have the funds to pay it. That's why a bond that high is put on his head, because the district attorney, who's operating seemingly with common sense, is saying, hey, wait a minute. This guy needs to stay in jail. This man is dangerous. You saw his rap sheet. I pulled it up earlier. We cannot let him out on the street. But the New York judges thought and felt otherwise and released him. And our good friend here was, roaming the streets, providing a great service to the Bronx, apparently. That's what he was doing. Now, let's keep going. identified by neighbors and the apartment landlord as the leader of the gun-toting migrant squatter drug ring, Hector sparked the NYPD bus, excuse me, Hector sparked the NYPD bus on March 27th after he pulled a 9mm pistol and pointed it at someone in an alley near the house, police said. A guy in a car with Florida plates pulled up and he was threatening these guys. And they all came out with their guns and somebody called the cops, said neighbor John Colby, 67. I wish John didn't put his name out like that because it sounds like these people are pretty dangerous. John will continue to say, ask any of the neighbors here. All night, they're going back and forth with this delivery service, delivering the drugs and the guns, and it's all out in the open. And it's all non-stop crazy, Colby said. This is very reminiscent of what the legal immigrant population of Gage Park in Chicago was complaining about concerning the illegal immigrant Venezuelan migrants that they placed in their neighborhood. Remember during the city council meeting in Chicago, when they were speaking to Brandon Johnson, giving him an earful, they were saying these guys are out here breaking into our cars. They're breaking into our garages. They're out all time of the night, selling drugs, smoking, drinking, doing whatever. They've turned the neighborhood into a complete ghetto. And whenever you call the police, Chicago PD essentially shows up and just goes, I don't know what you want us to do about it. They just throw their hands up and say, hey, I don't know what you want us to do. And it's looking like this is a similar situation here in New York, just committing crime out in the open. And apparently nothing can be done about it. Now, I have a strong feeling if somebody like myself was in Chicago or New York, let alone here in Los Angeles, which is a sanctuary city where I am right now, if I was out in the open committing crimes to the magnitude that they were in broad daylight, pulling guns out on people in broad daylight in front of everybody, I'm pretty sure that almost $500,000 bond would have been put on my head and it would have stuck and I'd still be in jail. But that's the unfortunateness that I have of being a U.S. citizen. That's just, when you're a U.S. citizen, you get penalized. When you're a U.S. citizen, you're held accountable. When you're one of Biden's migrants, you get to roam free, at least until ICE catches up with you. And that's what happened here. But after publicity from the bust that happened March 27th, federal agents barged into the multi-family dwelling yet again and arrested Castillo, Martinez, and our good buddy Hector, who had apparently returned to the home after being cut loose following their March 27th arrest. Law enforcement told the Post. So these guys got busted with all these guns, all these drugs, and apparently all these stories roaming around the neighborhood because they commit their crimes in broad daylight, arrested by the NYPD, released by the judge, and went right back to the home that they were squatting in that doesn't belong to them because they're squatting. Translation, they're attempting to steal the property, right? Or at least that space or sector in the apartment complex. And the thing that we have to remember, and that does need to be highlighted the most, and why I have it in purple so that I could remember, is that once again, the only reason they were caught is because this situation had gained so much publicity, I'm assuming because of the ridiculousness of it all, that the publicity tipped off ICE to where these individuals were so that they can get them. But what should have happened was the NYPD should have been allowed to do their job and tip off ICE. The NYPD should have been able to collaborate with ICE to get these guys off the street a long time ago. Remember the amendment that Eric Adams wanted to make to the sanctuary city law that currently exists in New York City. He didn't want to get rid of it outright. He just wanted to make an amendment stating that if an illegal immigrant commits a crime in New York City, a violent crime, they get hand over to ICE immediately. They get hand over immediately, and they will have their due process, but you'll just have to figure that out with the federal government. You'll have your due process with ICE. You'll have your due process with the feds, not with the local New York governing body, because clearly the local New York governing body at this point in time can't be trusted. You see the judges out here letting folks out who have attempted murder charges on their head. So what should have happened is what Eric Adams wanted to do, is make an amendment to the sanctuary city law so that the moment you commit these kind of crimes, folks like this woman right here that's being arrested, and it's folks like our good friend Hector, the moment that crime is committed, we're not going to get into all that, with due process here in New York City. Off to the feds you go. That's what should have happened. But it didn't happen. And because it didn't happen, these individuals were able to terrorize this Bronx neighborhood for as long as they did up until this point. This is awful, really. This is really awful. And even though they've been arrested and ICE has grabbed a hold of them, or at least some of them, at least 3 of them, right? Like I said, the landlord of the building, he's still in fear of his life. And that's what I'm going to read off to you right now. One of the squatters, still unidentified by authorities, remain on the loose and his whereabouts unknown, leaving the landlord of the Bronx house fearing for his life. I am now scared. This is the landlord of the house that the illegal immigrants were squatting in. A direct quote. And he's stating this: I am now scared. I can't even be here. They're out there walking around. I am scared. I am in danger, the landlord told the Post, claiming the tenants from hell once threateningly drew their fingers across their necks at him when he called the police. So they've already threatened this man once. We all know what this means. They've threatened him once already for calling the police on them. On the advice of an officer, he has put up plywood across all the windows and the doors of the home in hopes that it will prevent the loose squatter from re-entering yet again to harass him. That's crazy. I am still scared. They can still come here. They can still get to me. This is truly sad and truly unfortunate. And shame on the local officials in New York City who refuse to implement just common sense laws to get violent illegal immigrant criminals like our good buddy Hector off the street. And let's pull up his rap sheet one more time as we exit out of here. This is Hector. Oops. Let's get back to Hector. Pull this up one more time.
The attempted murder.
Our good buddy Hector. Criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of controlled substance, acting in a manner injurious to a child, previous charge of attempted murder, and released until the feds got involved on their own, because common sense just simply doesn't exist in New York City, of no fault of the NYPD, but of all the fault to the local governing body. I can't even say to the fault of Eric Adams. Well, I guess I could say to the fault, because he doesn't. If I'm not mistaken, Eric Adams, just like Brandon Johnson in New York, well, maybe it's not the same. Because from my understanding, Brandon Johnson in Chicago, he could eliminate the sanctuary city status of Chicago with just a stroke of a pen by way of executive order. I would assume that Eric Adams could do the same thing if he wanted to, but is choosing not to. And instead of choosing not to, and while choosing not to, he tried to, I guess you can say, put in place a compromise, a common sense compromise of at least allowing the NYPD to hand over these violent criminals to ICE. But the city council that really runs the city said no, they'll never agree to anything like that. And because of that, you now have people in the Bronx and the landlord of the home that these people were squatting in fear of their life. And this is all the fault of the city council and the local governing body of New York City. So at the end of the day, this is really on the citizens of New York. If you're not going to vote these guys out of office, then at the end of the day, you get what you voted for. You get what you voted for, unfortunately. And with all that being said, that does it for today's stream. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. There are 455 of you in the stream right now. If you haven't already, please hit the like button on your way out. And I have to give my thank yous to DSB, the executive producer of today's show. Man, DSB with another channel membership gift. DSB gifted another channel membership. DSB gifted another channel membership. DSB gifted another channel membership. And then DSB gifted another channel membership. Shout out to KO Kid Fit, also known as Grind and Motivate. He said Homestead 2.0 Crime Edition. There you go. I appreciate you, KO Kid Fit, man. And thank you for joining me tonight, man. I haven't seen you in a stream in a while, bro. It's good to see you here. DSB with another gift of a channel membership. DSB said, TD, you said you need more members. Just helping out, family. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. And he ran it back one more time at the end. DSB with another channel membership. Thank you, DSB, for being the executive producer of today's stream. And thank you all for joining me today and everyone else who contributed to today's stream. Once again, hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. And make sure you share this video on your social media platforms as well. And until tomorrow's stream, same time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, have a great evening and a safe one. Peace.